looks good. Hey guys, happy Friday again. Today's Friday, June 15th. I am with my friends, Boris, Garbe. I say Garbe, but it's Garbe, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Boris and Dr. Carmen McGuinness. Let us know you can hear us or see us. I'm excited about this because we've had a pre-interview party that's been, wow. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about, a lot to get to, but I want to make sure you can hear us or see us. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're there. All you people that go on silent, that don't give me the thumbs up. Will Benton's on. Hey, Will. Let us know you can hear us or see us. And we have somebody in the audience today. We have Diane Bourne in the audience. Yay. She's here. I love when we have audience members. We should have a gift bag for her, a swag bag or something. Instead of just the, well, I won't say what we've got. I've got wine, so I'm the only one here with wine. Will Benton. Okay, so Will can obviously hear us, so howdy, Will. So welcome. Thank you. First of all, Boris is such an amazing supporter of the show. He's tremendous with ideas, he's creative, and he always goes the extra mile to introduce me to people. And even though I believe Diane Bourne tried to introduce me to Dr. McGuinness first, I'm trying to give her kudos and a shout out there, because I remember, see? He brought me Dr. McGuinness and brought me the story and what we're trying to tell our big story today. And so I want to welcome both of you to the show.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
You are welcome. All right, so let's dive in. You guys we've had Boris on the show at least once, maybe twice. Have we done twice?
I was a guest on War's show.
Yes, you were. Okay, so, but we have some things we want to talk about today. We want to talk about the art of reading art, correct? That's our
right.
title of our show.
Love that
and there's
title.
that was all you, Boris, right? I did not come up with that. We want to talk about art. We want to talk about the art scene, but we have a lot more to cover. So I want to get first to Dr. McGuinness. Carmen, I'm supposed to call her Carmen now. So Carmen, tell us a little bit about you, because we know Boris from all of my tags about Boris and how amazing he is and him being on the show. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure, thank you for the opportunity, Ted.
I'm so happy to have you.
So I have a private school for kids with disabilities here in Altamont Springs, and I'm a practicing psychologist, board certified behavior analyst. And recently, I have also been working with Boris, doing psychological analysis of art. And I'm also an author. I have previously written academic books, 2 books, and more recently written 2 romance novels.
All right, so can you imagine that all in one sentence? So we have to dig deeper. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you become a psychologist? How did you eventually, once you became a psychologist, have a practice, have a school for disabled children?
Sure, I'd be happy to talk about that. So I have my youngest child, I have 4 children, and my youngest has disabilities. So I had owned a private school before, and when Rose came into my life, I adopted her from China.
Oh, man,
When
that's
she
awesome.
came into my life, I decided to start another school and get back into the school business so that she would have a school that really would work for her. And my school has a very broad range of students. We have everything from children with moderate disabilities to gifted.
Is it local? It's in Altamont, you said.
Altamont.
I did not know. What's the name of the school?
Chrysalis School.
Okay, so we'll post all of that later, because I find it fascinating, the resources that most of us don't know about in our
Thank you.
town,
I
and so
appreciate
that kind of information is so important. I went and visited Primrose School, which is an amazing school. Didn't know anything about it and wouldn't have if I hadn't been for the Mayor's Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So. But tell us a little bit about before that. So you weren't born and then became a psychologist, right?
Oh, I was. I'm sure. I'm sure. My mother and father would tell you.
They'll probably tell you, oh my gosh, she's been
telling
one
them,
since she was
analyzing.
born.
Yep. I grew up in Italy. I was born in Miami. That sounds like the start of a book.
I love that.
doesn't it?
Yeah, you see, take notes.
And then we moved to Italy when I was 5. And I was very fortunate to study art when I was in Italy. And as I grew and realized what my talents were, I decided to go into psychology and education.
What was the epiphany there that you wanted to get in psychology and education?
Well, there were really 2 things. One was parental pressure, but you've got to support yourself and art will never support you. there was that from my dad, but there was also and you came out analyzing us, so maybe you should be a psychologist.
Aren't all children coming out analyzing their parents? I mean, that's what I feel like.
Maybe.
But for people to have a passion for that, you obviously had to, I think psychologists in general have this insight, this really cool sixth sense, for lack of a better word. Even though you get trained to understand things, you still have to have a love for it and a passion for it and a talent for it. It's a gift.
I love helping people. In particular, I like to work with people who have challenges with their own children, and people who are adults and had challenges in their own childhood. We tend to relive our parental patterns in our adult relationships.
Agreed.
So,
I think all of us have probably experienced that either personally or with a friend or a family member.
Or
You
if
can
we're
watch
really lucky, both.
because you that is your point of reference, right? That's where you.
It's what you're trained in.
That's what you're trained in.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people repeat the negativity, sins of the father, that whole thing, because that's all they know. They don't have they don't have the tools to. Maybe they do, but they don't understand how to reach the tools and the resources.
They can certainly get those tools, but we are raised to be able to learn to manage the people that take care of us. So I grew up learning how to manage my mother and father.
Right.
Because that's what I negotiate with them, whatever you want to call
My
it.
wife's watching right now. Did you hear that, Stacy? That's what the kids are doing. I told you.
They're doing that to you,
They're doing
Stacey.
exactly that.
Call
me. We know. We deal with it. And I don't care how old children get. Mine are older. I feel like a lot of times they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah. The other piece of that is that they're pushing your buttons because
oh my God!
of course you raised
pushing
them.
my buttons 24/7. But in their defense, I mean, I can be a button pusher, but I learned it. That's what my childhood was about. My survival skills were based around the ability to push buttons or to, I hate to use the word manipulate because it has such a terrible connotation to it, but manipulate the situation. Oh my God. Don't think of manipulate as bad, people. It's a good thing. But good. I feel like that, and I still do that. That helped me learn in business. It's definitely been but it was totally a survival skill back then. So I love that. All right, so Boris, we got to get at least a little bit about you. Even though you've been on the show, but people, you're tagged. We have to at least get some information about you and where you're at. And I know how we met, but give them a little background on you.
Well, the really important thing is that I'm running this gallery, Mills Gallery.
Amazing gallery.
It is an amazing gallery. Where is it at?
1650 North Mills.
Yes.
Intersection Nebraska and Mills. But thank you, Ted, for giving Carmen and me this opportunity to talk about what we're doing. Because, when we started doing this, it was for a show called La Diaspora. It's a Puerto Rican art community that had a show there. And this was early on in my career. And that's when I asked Carmen to help me analyze the paintings. And then I asked the artist, is it okay if I talk about what the psychologist said? And they said, sure. And then I think we hosted the Global Peace Film Festival one day. And I met the director, David Bradbury, who's a twice Academy Award nominated director.
Wow.
And I gave him the show, the tour, and he said, I love this. He goes, if I ask you to be on a documentary, a private work for his, I will film you a little mini documentary about the gallery. And so that's the first time I realized we're onto something, Carmen. Why would a twice Academy Award nominated director do something like this?
Right.
We just thought we were having fun.
Yeah.
Well, you do have fun,
With
and that's
art.
obviously, really, you can tell their spirit. It's fun, passionate, but fun for sure. But tell us about that. So in your gallery, is it all local artists? Tell me a little bit about the gallery so people know, because I want people, because we're going to be talking about the gallery and what we're trying to accomplish. So tell them a little bit about the gallery.
It is a mixture of local artists, national artists, and international artists, because it's my obligation to show good artists that are from Orlando, but also to bring good art to the people here that are from other places. And Sometimes that is a little controversial because some artists think, why are you bringing artists from other places? There's enough local artists to show art. And I agree. But I said, part of what I do is I'm a teacher. I want to bring other artists in, like I said, from other places and let you see their art. So artists can compare their work versus others and see where they're doing. I mean, and that's one of the things that Carmen is allowing me to do, to understand art better.
And how did that marriage, for lack of a word, how that partnership collaboration come together? How did you two meet? And then I always love the story of how did you decide that you could collaborate like you're doing?
God knows if I remember. Do you?
I do.
Oh, good.
See, thank God. Thank God, Carmen. She's got it together.
Somebody has a memory.
Hey.
Yeah, well, Boris and I knew each other. We had known each other for a little while, and he knew what I did, and I knew what he did, and I was very much appreciating the gallery and so happy to be there and seeing it grow, seeing it unfold, if you will. It was really even before it was growing, it was just unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just sort of fell in love with Boris in a
Well, what's not to love?
in a friend way.
Come on.
At some point, I think I told him about my background in Italy. I had actually studied art. This is high school. It wasn't like, I wasn't.
Yeah, but you're studying art in Italy. I love
Well,
that.
I was growing up in Italy and in high school studied art. When I lived there, it wasn't that long after the Arno had flooded. I mean, for 20 years after the Arno flooded, we were cleaning art.
Wow.
In the cellar of the Uffizi Gallery. Students of art would volunteer to go and scrub some of the masterpieces.
Wow.
It was they didn't let us actually scrub, but we were allowed to carry
cannot
the
scrub.
scrubbing tools to the scrubbers. But yeah, it was pretty magical. So I think at some point I told Boris about that, and with Boris, you've known Boris long enough that you've seen those little light bulbs.
Oh yeah, they go on and off and
and
on
they're
and off.
colorful
I love
light
it.
bulbs.
They are.
And I thought, I'm not sure I should have told him. And next thing I know, he asked me if I would come and look at the pieces in the show he just referenced, and I said sure. We had a wonderful time, Boris and Lump and I.
Yes.
Oh,
By the
Lump.
way, Lump
Lump's
is doing
on.
well.
He's on the road. He's on the road to being mended, right?
Yay.
Thank God.
So that's kind of how we started. And initially, I'm not sure we knew exactly. I'm not sure we had a formula. Now we have more of a formula.
Had you done analysis of paintings before? Had you shared that? It's almost kind of like a reading of what's going on in the artist's soul, their thought process, their
I like the
psyche.
use of the word soul there. That's such a wonderful word, because to me the soul is the connection between the subconscious and the conscious mind. And what the artist is trying to show, what they're portraying, they portray in the same way that we all portray our message.
Right.
And that's from the conscious and the subconscious. And that soul connection, I think, is a wonderful word. So what I do is I go in and I look, well, obviously I look at the conscious pieces, but then I dig deeper and I look at the subconscious pieces that I'm seeing in the art, and maybe help Boris understand what the artist was saying through their subconscious. It's been an amazing process. Boris actually brought a piece of art.
Oh
If
yes,
you wanna-
he brought a piece.
Yeah, we can talk
How
about
does
it.
that? So Boris, as you're bringing up the piece, when Carmen is engaging you and talking about a piece, how is that beneficial? What is the ultimate goal of that analysis for you as the curator, you as the person who's bringing in artists? How does that help you? How does that help the gallery? How does that help the artist?
I'm beginning to understand better what I'm doing, because you're right. We were kind of all over the place with this. I was a teacher for 15 years. I taught hearing children Spanish and sign language. Because of that, Dr. Francine Patterson in California, the scientist that works with Coco, the signing gorilla, heard about me, and we started Florida's first interspecies communications exchange between hearing children in a signing gorilla. So
I
I
love
got to
this
sign
story.
to Coco, which was cool.
There's
That's so
reasons why I
cool.
love this man.
I know.
And now I realize I'm not just selling art, but I'm educating people about art. So I am educating once again, which is the one thing I'm really gifted at. So there it is, and here comes the painting.
It's not the only thing you're gifted at, though.
That's right. You have many gifts, Boris.
Thank you, but
Many,
here
many
comes the
gifts.
painting.
Oh, I had a thought and I can't remember.
What made
it
you
was.
choose this painting?
Well, this one is one of my faves because it really illustrates for me what I'm calling for this particular artist shadow figures. And if you look, there's frequently in her art, there's frequently two together here, sometimes more, but there's a lot of twos. And then there's often this other figure. And I'm calling them shadow
Fascinating.
figures because I think that they're illustrating the subconscious of the other women, and maybe in some of the pieces, the collective subconscious of the other women. In other pieces that she's done, there'll be a shadow figure for each woman, which is interesting too. And then we also looked at sort of the symbology of the different, like, furniture. So we're looking at, the sorts of things we're looking at is fears, but not to say that the artist has fears, but the artist is trying to show, to portray the sorts of fears that these people might have. So from this particular piece, we wonder about the artist. Is the artist trying to show us sort of the posture, or literally the posture in this one, the position of women in society?
So as you're analyzing that, two things come to mind. First, how does the artist respond? Because I think that's so important, because they're kind of I love the analysis of it, right? But I would imagine that some people want to hold back that analysis. So maybe they're not comfortable with it. Maybe they don't necessarily want to hear, maybe they don't want to be exposed. And I think it's such a positive, beautiful thing. But I would imagine if I'm putting myself out there, artists tend to be a little more introverted.
And I just remembered my thought.
Okay,
Thank you, Ted.
you're welcome.
It was that really what I give Boris is another way to look at the artist's work.
Right.
And I think anyone who makes a visual presentation of what they want to portray would want that to be analyzed in as many ways as possible, to be viewed in as many ways as possible.
Right. No, I loved what you said. So I try to look. I mean, I love art, but I don't have the eye for it or the analysis for it. I guess I could. Like, I could tell you what I feel about that piece, and as soon as you pointed some things out, I'm like, geez, I totally get it. But I think a lot of people look at art because it's so, is it subjective or objective? What am I using?
Subjective.
Thank you. So you're looking at a piece and you may see something completely different, but in order for, you're actually trying to, or you're actually reading what the artist, you think the artist is feeling or trying to portray, which is fascinating to me. And how did you decide that that's something you were going to do? Because you have the art background, you have the psychology background, but that's a whole that's marrying those two together.
Well, for me, this man really freed my spirit in that regard, because art is something that I kind of left behind for a while. As I mentioned, I was sort of joking, but my father really did sort of point me away from art. And I was raised in Narrow when what your father thought actually meant something.
Right.
And, I guess, and this might sound a little harsh to Dad, who truly loved me and was a wonderful man, but when our parents tell us, maybe that's not for you, they should be careful about how you read that.
I agree.
And what I read was, I guess I'm not good enough. I guess this isn't what I'm good at. Maybe I'll be good at something else.
Right.
He was steering me toward law because, as you've heard, I sure can talk. but
She said it, ladies and gentlemen.
but law didn't call to me. Psychology did, and I think that was probably a gift from the universe and
Sure.
Dad too, because I feel like I've been able to help a lot of people. But having gone full circle, I'm now back doing art in this really cool and unique way, and loving it.
And
It's so
how,
fun.
Boris, so what is your ultimate goal with this? Because I find this so awesome because
Thank you.
you're bringing a different angle, a different, there's a whole nother level here that you don't hear about. And so for the gallery, why is this important? Why is this relationship important for you?
Great question, but I wanted to say the artist is Renee Lewis, and right now the
Yes.
gallery has a show with Renee Lewis, Marlene London, and Robert Ross, and it's up for another month. Please
Wonderful
come up
artists,
and see.
all
Marlene
art.
London just popped on the show earlier, by the way.
Yay. All right, so it's a great question because Carmen and I are not reinventing the wheel, but we're decorating it with sparkles because this idea of having a psychologist analyze the art is being done in many places already. The only thing that I'm doing different, I'm making Carmen and what she does public. We have filmed it several times now. She's part of the gallery officially as a part of the team, and I kind of want it to be understood that when you come to Mills Gallery, like Anwar Superstar said in an interview, Mills Gallery is probably the place for the younger generation, or maybe the not so well educated when it comes to art, because you are not intimidated. Carmen and I and Marla E., we want to help you understand the paintings. And it's like what you were saying about this particular painting. You may have liked it, but after the tour, you will understand it.
Correct.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
It's more powerful then. I feel like people connect to it if you open up their eyes to something that they might not have seen or might not be trained to see. Or sometimes because art can be intimidating for people,
It is.
They don't want to admit what they see. They don't want to say anything out loud because for fear of sounding not smart, stupid, not educated. But you all are creating an environment, a safe environment,
Yes.
not only for the artists but for the patrons.
I mean, I realized early on that I could either do this like a grown-up or I put all shame away. And so I wear couture, I get on the furniture. I mean, you're getting a show, dinner and a show.
I love it.
And the thing that I think is most important for me is that when I was younger, I did not like going to galleries. I did not feel welcome. I did not feel smart enough. And when I give my tours, I'm talking to a younger version of me. Because I always had one foot.
I love that.
That's wonderful.
That's awesome.
I always had a foot out the door psychologically, just waiting for the moment when they made me feel stupid.
Right.
So I talk to a young me, and I try to keep the young me entertained, and that's what Carmen allows me to create this narrative. And we hang the paintings chronologically as much as we can, so we can tell a story
I love
about
that.
change, but in the middle of the tour, usually, there are people who are like, I know, and they have never talked about art this way. The only way I think American audiences talk about art is talking about the size and the colors and how it's going to look in their living room. Carmen and I are allowing them to look for inner clues that connect them to the paintings.
Correct.
Oh, I get that. I had that too.
Boris, you're bringing up such an important point, because the chronological piece I think is so important, because one of the things that we've noticed in the art is we've had these analytic meetings is that frequently what is subconsciously portrayed in some artists' work is later, when you look chronologically down the hall in the gallery,
Down the hall.
is more consciously portrayed, which is really cool.
Because they're evolving and progressing, right? There's
Well,
some
they're
sort of progression there.
Percolating.
I like that word. You said that earlier.
But
Tell them what you mean by that.
Well, we all have a message, I mean, I don't know every one of my messages right now, sitting here today, even at my ripe age. I don't know every one of my messages. Some of them are still percolating. We've got 3 eclipses coming up, by the way, this summer, so there might be a lot of percolating.
A lot of
happening.
percolation.
Yes. So, as we evolve and as we grow into our work, and time happens and life happens and events happen, some of it from within us and some of it from outside, internalizing, externalizing, we have that percolation happening, and we realize, oh, I've got a coffee here, yay!
Right.
And this beautiful piece of art.
So I did want to mention one thing. So
Please do.
I wanted to make it clear to the artists who are looking at this and are not sure about what Carmen and I are doing. I've had the unfortunate experience of some people saying, I don't think I want to do that in your gallery because I have a feeling Carmen is going to reveal private things about my life. And that is exactly the opposite of what we're doing. We're analyzing your work of art. We're not analyzing the artist.
Yeah,
Right?
That is so important. I mean, as somebody who I both have been a visual artist as a child, as I said, and a literary artist, and any way that anybody can look at my art is so, to me, it's a gift. So an unfortunate circumstance, I think, is that I've been out of town a lot when there have been some shows. It just so happened. I mean, my daughter lives in Seattle. She was pregnant, and she had a baby shower. Every single one of these events coincided with a show. So I didn't get to meet all of the artists, and I would have loved to have done that. I think it's important, though, not to meet them before.
I totally agree.
I love that. I was going to say the same thing.
As Boris just said, it's the art that I
Right.
want to analyze.
And the thing is, we interview the artist first and foremost. We sit down with the artist, and then we tell the artist, after Carmen looks at the painting, we're going to come to you, the artist. We're going to tell you what she said, and
We being you, not
well, me, yeah.
Yeah.
I come to the artist. I say, this is what Carmen said, and we give the artist final word on whether I'm allowed to incorporate information that Carmen gave me or not. We've had artists that have said, I want my art to speak for itself, and we had other artists who say, I didn't realize my art was that important, please share it all. And I'm going to say something a little vulgar now. When I'm allowed to
Hunkering
use
down.
information that Carmen gives me, the art sells better.
Oh, that's not vulgar.
See?
Well, it has to do with
I
sales.
wasn't sure where you were going after the
not
conversations we
vulgar.
had earlier. I'm like, oh my God, it's Friday afternoon. Here we go. Say that again, though, because I think that's important for them to
Yeah.
hear.
When I am allowed to share information that Carmen gives me, people fall in love or in like easier with the art because they understand it. See, this is something that has gotten me in trouble before. I've said this before, and I'll stick. Selling art is vulgar because art is the child of the artist. So technically, I'm selling children.
Correct.
That doesn't work for me. So I'm an orphanage, and I try to
I would
place.
have to report you.
Yes,
Right.
I am trying to place these beautiful children in the right homes, and in order to do that, I have
love
to
that.
introduce the
Me too.
children to the people, and so I get paid for that service. But Carmen allows me to take a child that maybe doesn't grab you immediately and allow you to get to know that child. You know, the dog I have, Lump, he wasn't perfect when I got him, and that's one of the things that I really liked about him.
Sure.
I got to know him. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here, you know. We only give a painting 4 seconds in a gallery because we just walk really fast.
Right.
So Carmen and I, we're trying to make people give a painting a lot more time, right?
Well, you and I certainly spend more time than that.
Yeah,
If we
that's
could get
true.
it down to 4 seconds,
Yeah,
it would be
4
really
seconds.
good.
All right, before I ask you what your parting words of wisdom are or what it is that you'd like to leave the audience with, you only touched on it for a minute, Carmen, but I've got to ask you, you write romance novels.
do.
All right, so we've got school, psychologists, art, and now romance novels.
Yes,
So how did that all transpire?
Well, I just had this romance in me. It was just there, and it was just under the surface, percolating.
It was percolating.
And I thought, I've written academic books. I've put my message out there before. I'm just going to sit down and start writing a book. So I did, and I wrote Unintended Consequences, a psychological romance. And it's actually, I'm very proud to say, it's the winner of the Independent Press Award in the erotica category.
Ooh, erotica.
But it is a romance. It is a romance. I mean, there hopefully is erotica in all romances.
Correct.
And there hopefully is romance in all erotica, probably less of that. But but this is an erotic romance, and
Carmen,
it's very psychological.
You write about very interesting characters in your book.
No way this was going to end without that comment. Why don't you share
write-
with them?
Don't you write about a certain curator?
Well, okay, so all artists bring themselves to their work, and they portray what they know, even if it's still percolating.
Right.
And writers use it's a cheat, really, for especially for new fiction authors, is to write about your own environment, what you know. So this particular book is set largely, although there's some traveling involved, in Orlando, and London, the protagonist, one of her very good friends is an art curator named Boris.
How is that even possible?
Well,
I love it.
it's possible like
So you have to
this.
pick
You
this
ask
book up.
Boris, do you want me to use your real name or not?
Unintended consequences. So we'll post all of Carmen's contact information, how to
Thank you.
how to
Because
reach
I
out
teach
to
her a
her.
little bit more than just art, right?
Here it goes. And as we unroll and unravel, any parting words of wisdom for them? First of all, thank you guys for coming on the show. I
Thank
think it's
you.
so important, the message. I was fascinated. I love art, and I think a lot of people do. I think, again, the intimidation factor. People don't know what to do when they go in, and so you guys are bringing it to us, and the explanation is important, I think. I think the analysis is so important.
Episode 188.
Is that what we are?
What does that say?
What does that
Episode
say?
188.
Is that what we are today?
don't know.
I love it.
What does that say?
I don't know.
It says a lot.
That's going to be in the next book.
To
That's right.
infinity.
Oh, we're going to be in the
We're gonna be in the next book.
Don't you worry.
And this crazy show host, Ted. But anything you want to leave them with? Any parting words of wisdom?
Me?
Either one.
Yeah.
You pick.
Parting words of wisdom. Oh wait, it'll take me a minute here.
Oh, here it goes.
Live long and prosper. Yay!
All right.
Come to Mills Gallery.
Come to Mills
Get the
Gallery.
tour. Fall in love with the art. Take it home.
Watch the TED show.
Watch
Watch
the TED
the
show.
TED
I like
show.
that.
Thank you.
All right.
Buy the book.
Buy
Buy
the
the
books. We're going to do all that.
Amazon.
All right.
Right?
Amazon.
Amazon. Right.
All right. Thanks, Marlene. You're very sweet.
Hi, Marlene.
Hey, Merlene.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
I
Thanks,
love your
Diane, for
work.
being
Thanks,
here.
Diane. Yay.
Diane was here.
Diane.
All right, we love you guys. I've got one more show left, Freedom Fridays, and that's coming up in a minute. Show them some love when we share everything, and I appreciate you guys staying in and tuning in. We love you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Mm.